Franchise is presented by FakeShep.net with support from Emresell. If you're looking to buy an iPhone, iPad, MacBook, or any other Apple product, visit Emresell today. They offer refurbished, top-of-the-line and next-to-new Apple products at a fraction of the regular price. And if you're looking to sell an Apple product, they'll buy them off you too. Visit emresell.com.au.
Welcome to Franchise, the podcast dedicated to movies with sequels, prequels, sidequels, spin-offs and remakes. I'm your host Glenn. With me, as they always are, is Jarrett and Sean. We are FakeShep.net, and you can find us on all kinds of platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, and well, you can just find us on Google. But for now, house rules.
Well, I think I have a thrush.
What the fuck is a thrush?
Farewell, dear shithead.
No fucking shit, lady! Do I sound like I'm wearing a piece of shit?
Lick my plate, you donkey!
In 1986, filmmakers Steve Miner, Fred Dekker and Ethan Wiley melded minds to create one of the most iconic horror movies of the decade, House. No sooner was that film released and a sequel was already underway, followed by a third and fourth installment. It's an unusual and somewhat clunky franchise, but it still manages to retain a huge cult following. Stick around and join us for the next hour as we unlock the front door and step inside the House franchise.
He came here for peace and rest.
Hi. Ready to play?
But now, he may rest in peace. It's been waiting for him.
Don't worry, Roger. I'll hold on to you if it's the last thing I do.
Now, it wants you. House. Rated R.
So I feel like I should be throwing this podcast to you, Jarrett, because this is your baby. This is House.
House is something that I've grown up with, and it's been an integral part of my life.
Let's face it, everyone in Melbourne knows that it's like one of your go-to favourite.
It
It's a
is.
comfort film for Jarrett.
Oh, absolutely. It gets watched. I'd say this is a film that I watch maybe the original House. I watch at least probably twice a year. Isn't that
What?
weird? It's weird, yeah. Because
Really?
I can't think of any other movie I watch as much as House. I know. Isn't that weird?
It's a little weird. Is
It
it
is
really?
strange. Honestly, yeah. I'm just drawn to the film like constantly, yeah.
What are you? What are you?
And
How-
to the contrary of that is part 2 is the one that I'm always going to.
Really?
Oh, hell yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, absolutely. How on this podcast, I have mentioned it many times.
I know.
that
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
got daybill posters and everything, don't
I got a
you?
lot. I got international posters for the original House.
Fucking
I've actually got a
t-shirts.
day bill for House too, just because I love the artwork and it's House.
So in terms of this franchise, I think it's safe to say that it's a fairly clunky and disorderly franchise. Isn't it?
it's the most bizarrely schizophrenic franchise known to cinema.
It might be the oddest cinema experience I've had in recent memory. Just sitting down, because this is the first time I've never seen them before.
You've never seen any of the 4 films?
Not a single one.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Like I remember going to the video store back in the day and seeing, the poster's great.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
sort of severed
It's
finger,
very
ding
iconic
dong,
art.
yeah, ding dong, you're dead, and all that kind of stuff. Was
Yeah.
that one? And yeah, but I never ever,
Never dipped your toes
Never
into
dipped
the
my
House
toe. Even
until
like
now.
in part 3, the hand is kind of almost
yeah.
3D looking.
Yeah.
Never watched this until like this week. Never.
Well,
seen
it
it.
is, like I said, clunky and disjointed, but the posters are all good.
This is very good.
And the ratings jump all over the place. You got
Yeah.
you got an M rated, you got a PG rated, you got an R rated.
R rating.
And
And banned in Queensland.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
one of the films is actually not fit for Queensland.
But I remember as a kid looking at like the poster art for number 2, and it follows in line with number 1 with that decomposing hand, and
Yeah.
it's really gory, and it's like it's got a
Yeah.
PG rating on the cover. What the hell?
Yeah.
What's with that?
What hidden treasures lie beyond that video cover?
So let's start with House, the first film, 1986, directed by Steve Miner, written by Ethan Wiley, story by Fred Dekker, starring William Catt, Kay Lenz, George Wendt, and Richard Mole, who plays the tough
Big Ben.
tough as nails soldier. And it was,
Big Ben.
of course, produced by Sean S. Cunningham from Friday the 13th fame. So, Sean, first
Yes.
time,
I
popped your cherry. What did you think?
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Enough to watch it twice a year now? Or?
I don't know if I'll be watching it twice a year, but it's certainly worth a repeat. Yeah, and I think the thing that struck me the most about it is when I was watching it is just it's how much fun it is. Right? It's not even that it's not particularly gory at all. It's not particularly laugh out loud hilarious.
No.
But it's just fun.
It's a right balance between those two things.
And when I sat down to think about it, I thought, that's Fred Decker.
Yeah,
like that.
there's
That's
a
just,
Fred Decker element to it,
yeah,
yeah.
it feels. It's got that same.
It feels
feeling.
it, but his actual touch is not really on this film.
It's
because the
not.
script
Well,
that he had originally written was not
much
reflective.
darker, much
Yeah,
darker.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it never even made it to a script like phase with Fred Decker. It was
No, he
only
didn't.
ever
Yeah,
a concept
yeah,
prior
yeah.
to Ethan.
He was
Wiley.
roommates
Right,
with Ethan,
yeah.
wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
just sort of said, I've got this idea and
Yeah.
do with it what you want.
Because I think at the time he might have even been working on the script for the Godzilla film that never eventuated. And so it was like the concept he had in his head and he bounced about.
I feel like this backstory recently surfaced. Like somewhere.
It did.
I don't know where I read
it. It was
it.
on our friend Mick Garris's podcast.
That's where
Right.
Fred
Oh,
Decker
of
was
course.
on Postmortem, and that's when he was talking about it.
Yeah.
But it feels Part 1 of House feels to me tonally quite a lot like Monster Squad. It's
Oh,
got that
yeah.
same kind
It's
of
a
levity.
family-friendly horror.
Yeah, it's got that
Totally.
levity and that buoyancy and that fun. Like I keep saying, it's this fun. Like it's a
Yeah.
fun horror
Very
comedy. Like
frivolous.
it's yeah.
Absolutely. And it's got practical effects like puppets and things like that.
Loads of practical
Yeah.
effects. like
Which
it's-
I take
yeah,
issue with some of
incredible.
these effects in it. And that's, I think.
I love that every
I
one of them.
was quite
I
enamored by them.
do love this film. Don't get me wrong, but you know how I feel about number 2.
Yeah,
the
God, but
thing-
that thing's full of practical effects.
Yes,
I can't
it
wait
is,
to hear
but
you
I'm
talk
gonna,
about that
I'm
more
gonna
later.
kind of do a little bit of a comparison. With
Right,
that.
right.
What I don't like about the puppet effects in this one is I give them full credit for bringing them out of the shadows, but I think that they're overlit too much, and I think you can
look,
see through the effects too
I
much.
agree mainly with the War Machine, which is the creature that pops out of the cupboard when he's got Roger's got George Wendt's character.
Is that what they call it? War Machine?
Well,
That's
do
what
you
it's
want to
called,
give
the
us a
War
bit of
Machine.
a
Alright.
backstory, a bit of a synopsis for this one?
Oh, okay. Well, that'll put me on the spot. All right. This is like the old school fakeshem.net podcast.
Take it away,
Basically,
Jared.
it's a Vietnam War veteran who's now a successful, like, best-selling genre author, I guess similar to, like, a Stephen King type author. And we kind of kick off at a book signing, I think, and then slowly learn that, they've lost his ex-wife and he had lost their son. But when he moves into his auntie's place, his grandma's place.
He
Well,
grew up
auntie?
there,
No,
yeah.
it's his aunt, isn't it?
His aunt,
His
yeah.
aunt's place. He realizes that maybe the kid was trapped in the house, by the house. And, through the help of George Wendt next door, very little help, in fact, he attempts to extract the kid from the house. And,
Yeah, that's pretty
I don't
much
want
it.
to. Yeah, I don't
That's
want
good
to spoil
knowledge.
anyone. If you
And-
listen to
and-
this podcast, yeah,
and slays his own
know.
demons in the process.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Confronts all the demons that he has from his post-traumatic war.
Yeah, there's a lot of PTSD
Stress.
stuff going
Yeah.
on here.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing that I don't think none of us would have picked up on when we were kids.
No way.
Watching this film,
Well,
but
this
as
is
an
like-
adult watching it, and that's now an actual conscious thing
Well,
that
that's
people
the
think
thing.
about.
This is really odd because we'd seen a lot of Vietnam, returning from Vietnam War films like Deer Hunter, First
Born on the
Blood,
4th of
all
July,
these movies. Well, that was later because that
That
was
was a
sort of
couple
the
of
tail
years
end of the
after,
90s,
yeah.
early
Yeah.
90s. But there was
They were
definitely
patriotic,
not.
weren't
Yeah,
they?
there was not a lot of horror films that were dealing with what is it?
PTSD.
PTSD. There wasn't any horror films dealing with it. So it's a tricky topic.
No,
to
but
touch on
even
in a
still,
horror film.
aside from the Deer Hunter, like most of them took the war concept and themes and made them patriotic.
True.
Whereas
true.
this film actually is
Yeah.
about the horrors of war.
Oh, absolutely. It's more akin to, say, something like, Born on the 4th of July or Coming Home or something that's about confronting demons to move on.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah,
a
it's
tiny bit of
crazy.
Jacob's Ladder in there,
There is actually. Yeah, no,
absolutely.
there is. You're right.
And that said, look, we're looking at a film that's 1986, so it was well ahead of its time in tackling those issues, but in what was predominantly a comedy horror.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So what would you say, having seen it more than either of us?
Yeah.
What is your favourite scene from this film?
That's a good question. I'd probably say when, oh my God, one of my favorites. The whole movie's amazing. So I've got a lot of favourite scenes, but one of my favourite scenes is when the next door neighbour turns up with a little kid and gets him to babysit. But she tries to seduce him to start with when she's swimming in his pool, and then she rocks up later and talks about, like, what are you up to, sort of thing, and then brings the kid out, and he's got to babysit this, neighbour's kid that he's.
Isn't there a
only just
musical
met.
montage with the kid? Isn't there like a Mr. Mum kind of
Yeah,
montage?
it's,
It
it's
is,
a heartbeat away. Yeah.
And he pulls out a Master of the Universe toy and actually knows that its name's Buzz Off, which I was super impressed with.
And the kid's a really good actor. He's a
The
little
kid's great because he cries on command and he smiles.
Yeah,
and
what the
laughs
fuck did
when
they
he
do to
needs
that
it.
kid, eh?
I know,
But
right?
my question is, like, what kind of parent meets someone that day and goes, "Yeah, look, I'm happy to leave my kid with this guy who's a bit strange, and he's just moved into the neighborhood, but that's cool because I got shit to do and I want to go out, so I'll leave my kid with him. It's the 80s, why not?
Yeah,
Not
why
only
not?
that, does a dump and run. Just pretty much opens the door. Here you go.
totally.
And off I go.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, I love that when the kid runs around the house first and he chases after him and they end up in the bathroom and they come out of the bathroom. He's like, oh, it's all right. He just needs to go to the bathroom. You're like, that's the first indication that maybe I shouldn't leave my kid with this guy. But anyway, but I think that's one of my favorite scenes. And the other favorite scene is when he thinks that, when Kay Lenz, his ex-wife, turns up and she turns into that sort of demonic form and he hacks her to bits and has to bury her in the backyard. And that's all done, again, into like an awesome montage with a great backing track.
Can we clarify something there? Did he actually kill her, or was that in his head?
Well, it's
Because if he actually killed her, I mean, they make very light of that situation.
well, it only killed the demonic version of her because she does turn up at the end of the film.
she does too, you're right.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's like, he's confronting the demons, but the demons have manifested themselves into some form of almost real reality, I assume, because they're enough of a real form of reality that at least George Wendt's able to see the stuff when he turns up. So it's whether it's that kind of mass hysteria sort of manifestation where it's like, if there's more people involved, they'll all see it. I kind of believe that they do. They do exist within that house as such. Yeah.
What I want to know is I'm curious what you guys think is, what do you think of the sort of the subgenre of horror comedy?
It's terrific, and I think this film nails it. And it was really within this couple years around this period that they'd found that right balance. Because prior to that, you'd had maybe Student Bodies, which I think claims to be the first horror comedy from about 82 that cashes in on the slasher genre. But it was really this and Return of the Living Dead that nailed it for me, and they were both within a year of each other, 85, 86.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the zombie comedy horror really sort of came from that era with Night of the Creeps as well, and
Yeah,
all that kind of
totally.
thing.
And
Dead-
that's exactly
Evil
it. It's
Dead
all pretty
2
much.
and-
It's
yeah.
all 80. It's all 85 through 87 because you got Evil Dead 2, you got Monster Squad, Night of the Creeps, you've got this, you've got Return of the Living Dead. You've got all those films that kind of found a great balance, very practical effects driven sort of films, but were able to make people laugh and a certain amount of suspense at times too.
And it was a good era for them sort of pushing family entertainment to these fringes. Like you had like The Gate and things like that as well, where they're clearly horror films.
Yeah.
But you could sit down arguably with your family of, say 12 and up.
Yeah.
And enjoy a film with the whole family.
Because I always feel like the horror comedy, those two elements I feel are always at loggerheads with each other.
I think they can work
I
well
don't-
together, though.
I don't
so
think that
well.
I don't think that they're conducive to this
Well, they're-
symbiotic relationship.
they're
I
different
think
ways
they
to
do.
do it.
We tackled Housebound on a previous podcast, and I think there's if done correctly, it finds a great balance of, you get an audience built up and you scare them, and then you throw a bit of humor in, and everyone's kind of like, oh, everything's good again, and then you unsettle them again.
That's the thing. The good directors will take the comedy and use it as a device to scare people. So they will lull you into a false sense of security, and
Yeah.
then they'll throw the hell at you.
Yeah.
And that's what Stephen King does in his books. And you've read his books. He
Yeah.
he throws light at you, light, gets you really happy and liking his characters, and then just boom, he'll throw horror.
Yeah.
And that's what I think good comedy horror does. And we're in a different era now where the comedy kind of
it's a
overrides.
I think it's a different
Yeah.
era now.
Yeah.
But-
This
but
was the
that's-
golden era, like that
But
85 through
said
87.
You said yourself, Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, I
Perfect
mean,
example.
but Evil Dead 2, I feel like that's kind of held up in regards as like and I could be wrong, but I always assumed that Evil Dead 2 was always like the ultimate horror comedy, right? I always think that that's the sort of pinnacle that everybody's kind of reaching for. They always they want to, but I always feel like the comedy always undermines the scare, which then for me makes it feel like the horror becomes redundant. Like as a comedy, House works really well. Whenever the next door neighbor shows up, I'm cracking up. She's a miserable old bat. And everybody,
Heart of gold, though.
She was my auntie. Heart of gold, though. Like whenever he shows up, it kills me. Like he but at the same time, whenever something horrendous happens, then I'm just like, well, I don't really feel the impact and I don't feel the scare because I know that nobody's taking this very serious.
Look, it's a strange dynamic. I think that these particular films we've been discussing, like Evil Dead 2 and House, are definitely comedy horrors in that they try to deliver both in equal measures. I don't think they're ever out to they're not like the nastier ladder stuff. Like, you look at a film like Hostel, for instance, which is from the mid-2000s. That film is pretty extreme and full-on, but for me, I only really saw it the second time round, realizing how much humor is in it, but the humor is derived from really awful things, and it's almost nasty in nature, but it's a very funny film, but it's a dark comedy. It's not like these that are really set up to be
Like
a
Glenn
mixture
says,
of
yeah,
both.
it can be family
Well, it's all about the
entertainment.
balance, though.
The balance.
It's which way you use the comedy. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is hilarious if you watch it the right way.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2?
Both.
Well,
The first-
I always do laugh at Franklin.
No, Toby Hooper
Franklin's a
has
whiny
said,
little bitch.
No,
Yeah,
Toby Hooper's
Toby
came
Hooper
out-
says
yeah.
no, the first
Yeah.
one is a satirical comedy, and
Yeah.
it is. If you watch it, it's funny. If you watch it the right way, when he's bashing her in the Hessian sack over the head, or when he's got her
Yeah,
head
yeah.
over the bowl and he keeps missing.
Or Granddad, Granddad, yeah.
Granddad, that
yeah.
is funny. It's
Yeah.
comedy.
It's kind of
infused.
funny. It's uncomfortable
What
funny.
about Nightmare on
yeah.
Elm Street? There's a hell of a lot of comedy in those
Oh
films.
yeah. The latter films more so. I mean, yeah, definitely the first one has
But
humor
even the
about
first
it, but
one,
I think it's more
Freddy
a
Krueger
horror.
uses comedy as his
I think that was an amazing thing too, though, because I think when Wes Craven did that, they didn't have that in what was to become or what was a slasher film. You know,
But that's
He
what I'm saying.
infused
It's all about
humor
how the
was,
horror, how the comedy is used.
Yeah,
in
totally,
horror.
totally.
And we've just come to a point in time now, probably thanks to Shaun of the Dead or something like that, where the
Well,
comedy
even-
just completely
Even the Scream films, to be
Overrides it.
honest,
Overrides it.
the
Yeah.
meta of the Scream films, you know, it just got kind of to a point of ridiculousness. I
But
think.
in the case of something like Shaun of the Dead, you don't watch it so much for the horror. You watch it because it's a comedy.
And,
I
and
agree.
because it's a parody of the films you've grown up and
Yeah.
you've loved. You've
Yeah.
loved those zombie films.
And it
so-
is when you take something like when you think of something like Shaun of the Dead and then put it next to something like House, they're not the same thing.
No,
they're
no.
they're not. It's way more leans towards comedy.
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead does.
Oh, definitely,
And House
definitely, yeah.
House does have that
Yeah.
that sort of split a bit more even. But even then, I think if somebody said to me, "What is House?" I'd probably call it a comedy.
But you can't make House now either because of the rating. Like, because we're so bloody... The censorship and what we allow
Yeah,
kids to
yeah.
be exposed to is different to what we did in the 80s. So if you tried to make House, you couldn't market it the way you could back then.
No, God, no.
You know, like it would be too extreme and we'd have to bubble wrap our kids from this, you know.
And
or
plus, all the horror guys would be so disappointed to see that the film wasn't horror enough for them.
didn't have
They'd
an
be
R
like,
rating, oh,
yeah.
God forbid, you know.
the
that
gore
kind of thing.
hounds would be
Totally up in arms.
So like everything in society, you know, we've just ruined it for ourselves by being overly sensitive.
Yeah.
I look, and that's not to say that I didn't enjoy it. Like I did, I enjoyed it a great deal. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was really funny, but it was like that tag of horror comedy. I'm like, oh, it just all sits.
What I
uneasy.
like most about this one, I asked you about your favourite scene.
Yeah.
Mine would be the finale. I love the tentacle monster that comes out
Oh,
of the
it's
cover
very
and
cool.
whatnot.
Yeah.
But then also that forced perspective at the cliff top at the
That
end.
still looks
Yeah.
fantastic.
It is amazing.
They've nailed that optical effect because it
looked
looks
yeah,
fantastic.
unreal. Yeah.
I watched
Yeah.
it on like a 65-inch 4K TV, and it still looked amazing. Looked
What did
better
you
than
watch?
a
Did you
lot of
watch
stuff.
on Blue?
I watched it on Blue, yeah,
Of course you did.
upscale to 4K, yeah.
This
yeah.
fucking guy. Like,
It looked phenomenal. Looked
because I think you
phenomenal.
and I probably, Glenn, watched the same.
Dude, I say to you
DVD?
every time, stupid fucking question. Like, how did Jarrett
yeah.
watch it? We all know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I watched it in
yeah.
the best possible way it's available. Unless it's Candyman 3 Day of the Dead, then I'll watch it in whichever way it's available.
Yeah, my fucking phone if I have to.
do either of you lads have anything you'd like to add
Yes.
before we close the door on House One?
I obviously am a massive fan of...
well done. I like that. That was good.
You've
Close
got-
the door and hush.
You've just made it obvious.
No, it was actually pretty good.
It was very cool, wasn't
You
it?
drew
Like-
attention to it, and I acknowledge it now. I am a massive fan of the film, so much so that back in 2012, we went and found the original house from the movie,
Shut up.
which is
me?
in Monrovia, California. So they did all the exteriors there, and the rest was they rebuilt it, obviously, for what they needed to do on the soundstage and all the interiors and whatnot. So we went there and got some photos. It was fucking pretty spiritual and awesome. And
It's the
then I
whole-
went to a convention, like, on that same trip with the wife, like, within a week later, and I met William Catt, got him to sign my house poster, and he wrote,
No
you
shit.
know, we actually inscribed it with, after I told him this story, I was like, oh, so when I saw the house in California, he's like, well, I don't want to tell you this, but there is no house. It was all a soundstage. And I'm like, all the bits you did on a soundstage, all the exteriors they shot, those a genuine house, and they replicated it on a soundstage. We went to it and we saw it, and I go, have you watched House? Like it happens at the start of the film. And the boy knows it. He's like, and he goes, oh, you're right. And he goes, yeah, no. He goes, now that I think of it, I did do one shot. And I go, yeah, we did the commando roll outside of the house and you meet George Wendt. And he goes, yeah, that's it. He goes, so there was a house. Shit. He goes, I completely forgot there was a real house. He goes, I've been telling people for years there's no house. I went, well, I've been to the house and it was awesome. And so he signs my poster. Thanks for visiting my house, Roger Cobb. And then in
nice-
brackets afterward, William Catt.
Good.
It was
I love
awesome.
it. This fucking guy's
I
like.
know. And then the best part about it was the next day I was at that con, got up, went to Starbucks, had a coffee. He's in line behind me, and he's like, hey, Jarrett, And I turned around, it was William Catt. I'm like, the dude remembered my name because
Wow.
I am the ultra house nerd from Australia.
Well, you know what? Before we move on, I'm glad you brought that up
Yeah.
because the scene at the start of House where you got all the nerds wanting his autograph, that's you.
That's totally
That's
me.
you.
Totally me.
That's life
Yeah.
imitating art right there.
Do you know what? Do you
Totally.
know what I made that better? Is if you're in Starbucks getting a coffee and then he's behind you and goes, "Hey, Jarrett," you turn around and see it's him and go, "Oh, fuck off, William."
Last year, you were terrified by House. Now there's an all-new House with brand new owners.
Is she a virgin? Because I've never seen one before.
We got a little problem in the other room. Better come have a look.
And the place is really coming to life.
Thanks, Charlie.
House 2, the second story.
I've seen enough tragedy and disaster to make you want to upchuck in your shorts.
Rated PG-13.
Starts Friday, July 10th at a theater near you.
Which brings us to the original Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, House 2.
Yeah, what the fuck?
I'm excited. Like, come on, guys.
You've been waiting for a
Yeah,
platform
yeah,
to talk
yeah.
about this film for years.
Lift it, guys. Lift it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Glenn talks about House 2. When he talks about film sequels, House 2 is the go-to.
Well, that's always his thing, isn't it? That's what. Whenever Glenn talks, he's always just like, "I enjoy part 2s more than I enjoy part 1s."
Yeah.
Like I've seen Caddyshack 2 more than I've seen Caddyshack 1. House 2 for the win.
I feel
Yeah.
like I spoke to some random person the other day that I don't know so well, enough that I can't remember who it was, that said, "Isn't that Glenn's thing? That guy likes sequels. Like, he likes all the sequels, mainly." And I don't even know where that came from.
Who was that?
I'm trying to think now. I think it was someone that came into the office that's like knows Monster. And
But hang
maybe
on, what was the tone of this
No, I
conversation?
think maybe like, we were talking about a sequel, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, Glenn likes that." And he goes, "But he wouldn't he? He likes the movie
Oh, I
sequels."
don't like the sound of that.
Yeah. It is, but
I think it was in a nice light, but not knowing who it was or when it occurred, but it did happen.
It really ticks all the boxes, though, doesn't it? It's a sequel, check.
Mm-hmm.
2, it's kind of got that kids-friendly,
Very much so.
very adventurous.
It's not a horror film; it's a fantasy film.
It's it's
Yeah.
a fantasy adventure
Fantasy
film.
adventure.
You know, that's your bag.
It is.
That ticks all the boxes.
It's got a lost world. It's got fucking dinosaurs. It's got stop motion. It's everything.
It's
I
got a
love.
it's got a useless subplot about
Yeah,
a fucking music.
got a cat
musician.
Yes, that's right.
That'd be on your list. Your checklist.
Gramps patting his cat and dog.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Hey,
so
bring me back some more beer.
let me give you a little bit of a rundown if you've never seen it. A young guy inherits his old family mansion, which holds the secret of an ancient Aztec crystal skull. And through the power of the skull, the guy's great-great-grandfather, Gramps, is resurrected in a state of decay. And because the skull's power gives immortality, it's quickly stolen by other guys, blah, 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 and then there's an adventure to find it. And that's pretty much the crux of the story. You don't need to go in depth, but it's got Bill Maher. And that's
It does.
weird.
It does.
Must be one of his first films, yeah?
Yeah, and
First
because I thought the lead
appearances.
actor when the lead actor I forget I'm
Ira
blanking on his
Gross.
name.
Ira
Yeah,
Gross.
yeah, because he was in
When
Soul
he-
Man.
Yeah.
Which was directed by Steve Miner, who directed the original House.
There you
Weird.
go.
Boom. And he was in Minority Report. He was the guy towards the start that got arrested for the
He
pre-
was.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, he looks so similar to Bill Maher that at first I thought that was Bill Maher. I'm like I had to go through IMDb.
Hang
looking
on,
for
Bill Maher
pictures
once
of,
looked likable?
But the thing about this, obviously, at this point in time, they had intended for House to be an anthology franchise, with each film being just a different house, a different story.
Yeah.
Which kind of is where this one is disconnected entirely. It was directed by Ethan Wiley, who wrote the first film.
Yeah.
And so he wrote and directed this one. And I don't know, what do you think was going through the guy's mind, like to distance himself so much from the first House to make essentially a science fiction fantasy?
How much money have we got to spend?
Yeah.
How much money did the first one make?
Yeah. How much money will you give me?
Yeah.
It is an odd. Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that really appreciates the fact that okay, we're gonna stick with it thematically. It's gonna be about haunted house. You know, that's gonna be the tie-in, and we're gonna try something different and take it in a different. Because there's nothing worse than a sequel to a really good film that just basically retreads the
yeah.
same ground and you know.
Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, right. Where
Brilliantly.
yeah, where. Yeah, I tip my hat to them. It's like, okay, we're going to try something new. We drop the rating, open up the appeal. We're going to up the budget, and we're going to make it everything, well, almost everything the first one isn't.
See, because I think, too, with the talking about the practical effects compared to the first one,
Yeah.
the first one, like, they're good practical effects.
They're great.
And they represent what I love about film. But like I said, I can see the flaws to them because I think
Yeah.
they, in a way, take themselves seriously. There's a real demons and whatnot, but you can see the rubber, you can see the light. But in this one, there's nothing taken seriously at all. I think.
No, so you can be more forgiving
You've got
of
this
things.
pterodactyl in a cupboard that just looks like a Jim Henson creation.
Yeah.
But they know it's
Why
stupid.
didn't he open that bloody cupboard before he opened the pantry? Because then as soon as they walk out of the room, he opens the cupboard and he's like, see, the pterodactyl.
That's the point.
And then
No.
like, damn you.
That's the point. It's the same door. It's the
What
same
I
door.
want.
No, it's the
the one with Gramps is in.
Yeah.
What I want is
Gramps.
House 5 pterodactyl in a cupboard. That's the greatest title to a film that never happened.
Well, the tagline for this one is that there's been a few, I think, frightening strikes twice.
I like that one.
Nice.
It's not a bad one. And the other one was it's an all-new house with brand new owners, which doesn't really
And there's
make
another
sense.
one. It's getting weirder.
It's getting
Well,
weirder. Yeah.
that's the third
That's on
one.
my cover.
Yeah.
Well, that
cover
makes
thing.
sense, doesn't it?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That one.
That's the distributor watched the final cut and went,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Yeah. What the hell? How are we going to market it?
But the one that says, it's an all-new house with brand new owners, that doesn't really make sense when you break that apart. Right.
No, exactly. If it was the same house with all new owners,
Yeah,
it makes sense.
exactly right.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time I saw anything of House 2, because I was like, obviously, House, I remember seeing...
Did you see them in order?
Yeah, I did,
Yeah,
I saw
right.
ads for House when I was moving from Melbourne to Queensland when I was a kid, and so they were playing TV spots all the time. I was psyched for it. Didn't get to see it till it came out on video, obviously. But then House 2 started popping up in... it was pretty much like the back page of comics, like a Marvel Comics that have a picture for the film, which was a different art from what I'd seen anywhere else for it. It had John Ratzenberg even on the art. They're all like peering through a hole in the wall, and the Catadog's in the photo, and it's like...
Oh my god.
And it was like, I saw the art,
Yeah.
and like I saw the art for like a year before the film finally came out. And of course, my parents would never take me to the movies. I didn't even know it played at the movies, so I saw it on video. It obviously wasn't
Video
what I
for me too,
anticipated it to be. It was very different, but but I remember seeing that art going, this looks a little different.
Well, talking about the art, I don't know the one you're talking about, but I'll
Strange
try
art.
and track it down.
Google
but
image
obviously,
search it, yeah.
it has the one with the number 2 being like the
That's
PC
the great
board,
art, the home video art and the
with
Australian
that
theatrical
really
art.
big fat PG rating on it. It's not
Yeah.
just a small one; it's a really fat one. It's almost like they're saying, "Hey, parents, you can take your kids to this
Yeah.
one," But there's also, I think, an American artwork which is very, very similar to the original one.
Yeah.
The original one is the
with
finger.
the
This
key.
one's the key.
Yeah.
Which is probably a little bit misleading.
And
But
then what's the weird thing too, though, is that the first one that I've heard Sean S. Cunningham talk about it, having produced the first one, produced the second, produced all of them, he'd said that they'd really hoped they were going to get that R, and they were worried about they wouldn't get the R for the first one. It might get the PG-13. They got the R, and they were like, "Thank God we got the R, because otherwise the horror fans wouldn't come and see it." And then this one clearly is, pointed toward a PG or PG-13
do you think
audience.
the first one's response was much more favourable with a younger demographic? That they thought,
Maybe,
let's just...
but I don't know if they had that much time, because the weird thing is this followed immediately
Pretty
after. It was a
close.
year, technically it was 87, so it was a year after. So it must have been produced pretty much the first film.
Was it a
blew
script
up,
they already had on
you know?
hand and just retrofitted?
Could have been. Could have been Ethan Wiley had this film as well. Is that maybe he wrote 2 House films?
So it wouldn't
Right,
surprise
yeah.
me if that's what Ethan
True.
Wiley did. Is like, if you like House and House Goes Gangbusters, then I also have this one. And the fact that he directed it was
Yeah.
almost certainly written into his contract of part
True.
1 or something like that.
Yeah.
If it makes this much money or something, I get the chance to direct the second
Yeah.
one. And
So, for as much as I love this film, I don't know a hell of a lot about the production or anything like that.
Right,
Is there
right.
anything you guys know that I might not, that you can add to the conversation?
Look, I've watched all the documentaries on all the Blu-rays for every one of the films, but I only revisited the documentary on the first when I rewatched the film recently, because I knew I had to make it through the next few installments. And there is an entire, probably 40-minute documentary about the second film on the Blu-ray. And I haven't rewatched it. So I can't tell you any trivia
would it
from
be stupid of me to ask, do you
Yeah.
like House 2?
Look, this time, having watched it this time, is that I actually turned to Danny, because my warning for her all along was, I won't say what
Glenn likes
I won't
this.
say what about it. I won't say I won't say anything about 3 or 4 till we get to 3 or 4. But to go with 2 is like, I've seen 2 probably like a third of the times I've seen the first one. Like, I've seen House 2 a lot, but I always find when I watch House 2, I'm drawn to watching it because I feel like there's something about it that I should love. And every time I watch it, I get distracted. Like, I get 20 minutes in, I'm into the first 10
zone out?
minutes. 10 minutes is super sold me.
Yeah.
Then I zone out, and then I'm like,
Is it when
I pick
Gramps
it up
comes
my
along?
phone. I think pretty much, when they dig him up.
Yeah.
Probably around then. And then I get my phone out, I get the laptop out, maybe I make a coffee, I do all these things. And I said to Danny, I'm watching this entire film. I'm not getting distracted. I kept almost drifting off. But I made it through this time. And I got to say, this time around, I enjoyed it more than I ever have. I do not love this film, but I love what they tried to do with this film, which is like what you mentioned. They tried to differentiate this film from the first, similar to what they wanted to do with the Halloween franchise early in the piece, and it didn't sort of work, which is weird that they didn't learn that didn't work for the Halloween franchise, given that that was made like 3-4 years prior to this. But having seen it this time around, I enjoyed it more, and I can appreciate what people like about this film.
Yeah.
Like, I don't love it, but...
Do people... I
you
mean,
know,
like...
It actually
does it
has...
have a
yes,
following?
I jumped on YouTube, and there are a lot of videos... Because the only people that are talking about House 2 on YouTube are people that are praising it. Well, maybe, but, like, honestly, there's no videos out there that are going, House 2 is the worst fucking sequel ever. It's people out there that are doing videos about why House 2 is so good. Right. And it's amazing. Like, I watched a couple of minutes of a few of the videos that people are talking about it for, like, 20 to 30 minutes. Jesus. They're talking pretty impassionately about this film. And that made me go, yeah, well, you know, I can see what they like about it. And they are very passionate about it.
And would it be the fantasy stuff that they really dig it? Like
I think, and that wide appeal, because for a lot of people, they had seen this film prior to seeing the original House.
It's an entry into the series.
Entry one, and then they go back and they watch House, and they might like House, but they don't like it for why
they've
they
got
like
the
House 2.
nostalgia.
Yeah, House 2 is something else. It's its own beast.
Yeah, they've got the expectation that it's, like you say, a sci-fi fantasy
it's
adventure
film. It's a strange film, House 2, but it kind of works. Like, this time around, watching it and not getting distracted, I was like, you know what? Like, it works. It's a film.
I definitely feel like this one's got way more space in the production for the comedy.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
I think it's a much funnier film.
Goes for the funny bone.
Yeah, it definitely goes for the funny bone. There's no scares in this. You know, there's not even any.
Well, that's what I was saying about the effects. It's deliberately, hokey
goofy. Yeah,
that's what I mentioned though. Is that is it John Ratzenberger?
Yeah, he plays the other Cheers connection,
which is funny because you got Cliff and Norm from Cheers.
That's
and you had George Wendt the first, and you've got
he kills me when he comes out to get the guys. He's like, "You better come see this." He goes, "Yep,
so good."
That's a whole other dimension, guys. Like,
I just love that he's so matter of fact about it.
Yeah, he's so cavalier about it.
So good. And then he just opens his toolcase and has the sword.
Well, because he's like a demon hunter.
Yeah, he's great.
But like, I think I enjoy his performance more than George Wendt's in the first one.
I love George Wendt the first. Like, that comedy timing is so great.
But obviously,
Heart of Gold.
Obviously, the Cheers connection with both is intentional. Like, there's no way that happens without it being so. Yeah. And the guy that played Gramps, he was a seasoned actor that was in stuff like A Far Country, Moby Dick, The Right Stuff.
Old school Western dude.
Then he turns up in The Dark Half, Ghoulies 2, Space Invaders, and Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh, Killer Clowns, of course. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Well, now you mentioned that, is old mate, the lead, whose name Ari Gross, was it?
Yeah, Ira Gross.
His mate. The chap that has the sports car that lets Gramps drive it around. It's like, here's my awesome fucking sports car. Let the zombie drive it around who's never even been in an automobile before. Crashes into something, has a giggle. And I'm like, that's an expensive sports car. But anyway, that guy's the guy, Charlie. Is it not Charlie? What's his name? From Fright Night. He's Chris Sarandon's keeper. He's the guy that looks after Chris Sarandon at the house, next door. Chris Sarandon, the vampire.
I can't think.
It's been so long.
Yeah, he's
since
the
I've
keeper.
watched Fright.
He's the guy that looks after him. He's the guy that basically is the slave. That he's awake during the daylight hours to make sure that no one's intruding the house.
Could be.
To get at him.
It's
definitely him. Absolutely. Like,
well,
100%.
Fuck, he's really annoying in this one.
But and the age difference is pretty dramatic between those two friends.
Yeah,
because you look at him, you're like, there's probably like 10 to 15 years between these two guys, and they're best mates.
I thought he was great fun.
I enjoyed him. Yeah,
I thought it was
like
quite
him.
fun. Yeah,
I like him. He's a bit restrained toward the last half of the film. It's like they pulled him back a bit, but
I think the electrician is probably the greatest sequence in the entire series.
Yeah.
I think he's the strongest part.
Especially when they come out of the portal and there he is.
Totally. He's beat them back out. He's ready to go.
When he taps the lamp, he taps the light bulb, he smashes it, he goes, it must be foreign. Like,
that's so great.
Fuck, he's the best thing in it. And then a close second would be the friend, I reckon.
Yeah,
I reckon the friend was,
What about the Aztec girl, though? Because she never speaks a lick of any dialect, let alone English, and he's going to mosey up with her at the end as they head into the sunset and they're like, with the horse.
In the Wild West. In the Wild West,
And he's like with the Aztec girls. He's like, I don't know what's going on.
I'm just
along for the journey.
I think the weird thing about this film is everything that happens in that dimension makes no sense. It
Yeah,
doesn't
totally.
matter. Like, it just
Totally.
I don't actually pay that much attention to it. I
It's great, though,
like what
because
I'm looking at.
the cop shootout's amazing, because the cops really shoot the shit out of that house. It's lucky that any of them make it out alive, and of course he has to go to another dimension, because there's no
here's-
explaining of that.
Here's what cracks me up about both of these house films, particularly the first one, but
Yeah.
in number 2 as well, is that you get these exterior shots and the house is fucking lit. Every window
Yeah,
is
it's
fully
beautiful.
lit. Then you
Yeah.
go to the interior shot and he's beside
Dark
the computer
and
with a
shady.
fucking lamp.
Yeah, like a desk lamp. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Can,
And that's in both of them.
can somebody explain the subplot of the musician birds? Like,
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that. Okay,
That
so
has-
like
that has
his
no place
girlfriend
in
and
this
he's the
film.
agent, the friend.
Yeah.
It was almost like it was.
She's a pop singer, yeah?
yeah.
Yeah, and
But
then,
then they strike
pretty
up
much
the deal
Bill
and
Maher
then, like-
comes in and
Well, because
takes him out of the movie.
because
yeah, you never have to see him again.
MTV was like the
Abs-
thing back then,
yeah.
and like he plays.
Absolutely.
You just needed a girl to dance in her
nothing.
underwear to a song.
That's
pretty
basically
much.
what it boiled down to.
Yeah.
You
was,
needed
yeah.
a character there to just say what's going on,
Yeah.
what's in that door.
Yeah.
You know,
It's just, I mean,
and
Yeah,
could
just
you
to
get
provide
a more
bit of comic
patronising
relief.
person?
I know, 'cause
I know,
he's such an
Bill Maher.
asshole. Such an asshole. That said, I'm going back to LA in a couple of weeks' time. I'm going to go and see the house from House 2. Because it's there.
Wow, cool.
I've
That's-
got
Are
to
you sure?
see it, yeah.
Are you
no,
gonna?
no, no,
are you
100%.
are you sure that
It's a
there?
legit
Are
house.
you-
Legit house. They've shot a few other films there and TV shows since. But yeah, I'm
now
gonna
you
go
just
and
have
see
to
it.
get an IRA message on the photo. What else? There's 2 more things I want to point out, just really, really small things. This was released the same year as Crocodile Dundee, and it's got that "this is not a knife" scene. You know, when he pulls out a small knife and the
Yeah,
other guy
yeah.
pulls out an even
Oh,
bigger
yeah,
one,
yeah.
Yeah.
like a machete. I thought, I wonder if
He's
that
got,
was
yeah,
a
he's got the flick.
deliberate.
It's a flick knife, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
yeah.
I wonder if that's a deliberate reference, maybe. And then there's the old, you like to sometimes find the politically incorrect stuff that was the norm back
Yeah.
then. There's that great scene when he goes, "I'm really scared right now." And he goes, "Don't be a fag."
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Did you not watch
Yeah.
that and go, "Oh
Yeah.
man"?
Yeah, that would never happen today. Or what about Kane Hodder's? Kane Hodder's.
Oh yeah, he pops up.
He pops
because
up.
he was the
He was the
stunt
gorilla.
guy in the first film as well. He
He
did
was stunt coordinator. in the
stunt
first one.
coordinator
Yeah,
on
yeah.
House. So yeah, he pops up in the
He
second
was the
one.
gorilla in the
Yeah.
second
So
one.
it's
that
got
fell
those
off of the-
connections.
Yeah. Well, definitely because obviously Sean Cunningham went
Yeah.
back and
Produced
used them. Yeah,
all the
produced
Friday
Friday
the
the
13th
13th.
films, yeah.
And that's it. Cool. All right, guys, I need a beer, so I'll be back in a minute.
If you're looking for a new Mac product, Emery Cell is the place for you. Don't throw your money away on stupidly expensive Apple gear when Emery Cell provides top-of-the-line, totally refurbished products across the Apple range. Whether you need a new iPhone, iMac, Mac Pro, iPad or other Apple products, visit Emery Cell. And if you're looking to sell your Apple gear for whatever reason, Emery Cell can offer a generous price with full data erasure, fast payment and free shipping. Visit Emery Cell's website to see for yourself. FakeShemp.net uses their products and they wouldn't steer you wrong. Visit emerycell.com.au.
Tune in to the next episode of Rewind and Digress, where we track back to 1992 to discuss one of our favourite films, Stephen King's Sleepwalkers. Directed by the mighty Mick Garris, this podcast episode is an absolute feast. In fact, if podcasts were meals, this one would be a buffet and FakeShemp.net a bloody sizzler.
But getting onto the music, Sean. Now tell us a little bit about the
Enya.
old Enya.
Yeah, I love Enya.
What's it called?
Yeah.
Bodicea?
Bodicea? Or
Bodicea.
something like that?
Boudica.
Yeah. Oh, Boudica.
There
Okay,
you
yeah.
go. Boudica. Come on,
Yeah.
Sean.
How does it
I
go?
know,
Yeah,
sorry.
give us a rendition.
Bum ba dum dum. Bum ba dum dum. Ooh.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound
It
anything
doesn't
like
really
it
go.
does, but, I sung it better on the toilet.
Want to get rad? Well, listen back to our previous episodes of Rewind and Digress, where we talk about such classics as Pet Sematary, Tourist Trap, Electric Dreams, Basketball, the list goes on. I encourage you to listen now, otherwise I'm going to come around to your joint, I'm going to check your browser history, and I'm going to call the local newspaper and tell them you're a perv.
Come on, Janky. It's checkout time.
Nobody's going to miss Max Janky because he hasn't gone anywhere.
Lucas, I'm coming back to tear your world apart.
You're dreaming!
I thought you were dead.
I told you I'd be back. The Horror Show. This is just the beginning.
Fucking House 3 for the win!
Oh boy!
Fucking House 3 is the best of the
Hold
series.
your horses.
His favourite. It is his favourite.
It
We
is my
actually
favourite.
we did.
We put a little wager on this.
Yeah.
We haven't discussed the films at all, but we
No.
were at the cinemas the other night, and I think Jarrett, you turned to me and says, I don't know if Sean's going to like any
How's
of these.
Sean going to go with these house films? I'm not sure he's going to like any. And then Glenn says to me, House 3. And I went, yeah.
Why? How did you pay? I mean, like, well played.
Well,
but-
one, Lance Henriksen.
Yeah.
Two, Brian James.
Yeah.
Three, just the story.
It's more a straight ahead.
Yeah.
Straight ahead film.
And I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of Jim Isaacs as well, the director.
Right.
Yes, and
Rest
we'll
in
talk.
peace.
Let's talk about him in a minute.
Has he a
Yeah, he died
He
a few
died
years
nearly
ago. Yeah,
10 years
Really?
ago, yeah.
He only
Yeah.
got to direct a handful
he
of
had
films.
a really rough trot towards the end.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty grim.
Blood cancer, I think it was.
Yeah, it was grim.
Yeah.
cancer,
Jesus.
We'll talk about him in a minute.
Right.
So House 3 is also known as the horror show. When I said this franchise is disjointed, this is the one that really is the most.
Yeah, this is the
disjointed.
spanner in the works.
So it bears no relation to the previous installments, thematically, story, whatever. None of it is related. It's a straight up horror film. It's dark, it's violent, it's gory, really horrific, and it's said to have been originally written as an actual sequel to House, but due to the lack of comedy, they decided to rewrite it into a script that stands alone. Now, what I don't get is how the fuck could this, in the first place, have been connected? I can't even think of it.
No, well, I mean,
Other than that, everything that takes place kind of is in a residence.
Kind of in the house.
But it's not
But
as a
then at the
result
police
of the
station,
house.
you know, no.
Because
no.
that's the common thread
Ah.
for the first two is they're haunted houses and everything that happens is a result of the house.
So, in layman's terms, the story is about a sadistic serial killer who is executed and then haunts the family of the cop that caught him. Brian James plays the killer, Lance Henriksen plays the cop. That's basically it. It's like another take on Shocker, the Wes
And
Craven film.
It precedes Shocker
Yeah.
as well. It's infinitely better film than Shocker.
It is
in my
way better
opinion.
than Shocker.
Well,
way better than
that's
Shocker.
that's what gets me is that it's this mash of all these things. It's a little bit Freddy. It's a little
Well,
bit
isn't it? No,
Shocker.
It's a lot
just,
Freddy.
Yeah.
Just before you go there, having rewatched this film today, to me, it felt like it could have very well have been within that Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, but in the early, following the first, even the second film, it's very much more a Nightmare on Elm Street.
She gets sucked into the bed.
Totally.
The way that he sort of, haunts them is very Freddy.
Yeah.
The fucking tagline, "You'll wish you were back on Elm Street."
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
But,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And it's even kind of it kind of plays with those dynamics that Wes Craven's New Nightmare played with a little bit. Coming in and out of the real world,
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
that kind of stuff. And there's elements even the cop that's investigating the paranormal stuff. I'm like, well, that just to me that's just Jeffrey Combs.
I was
from-
going to say Jeffrey Combs from the Frighteners.
From the Frighteners.
Absolutely.
I mean, like,
Yeah,
without this guy, maybe Jeffrey
Yeah.
Combs' character wouldn't have existed. And
I love that you
it's-
said that. It's in my notes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and that's why I think it's as engaging and the best of the series. I think it's beautifully shot. It's shot by the same cinematographer that shot the first two.
Yeah.
Except this one is a little darker and it's a little grimier. It's obviously a much uglier film. There's no levity in it. Everybody who's in it gives it everything they've got. Lance Henriksen isn't playing it for shocks. Like he's acting in it. Like
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
trying.
It's a legitimate film.
It's a legitimate
It is,
film
it
in
is,
and of
isn't it? Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
But how it fits in the canon.
But
is
yeah, well,
beyond
am
me.
I correct in thinking that this was only released as House 3 outside of the States? In
It
America,
was.
it was the horror show. So
Yeah.
how is it that
Well, I think it was
House-
even more limited than that, wasn't it? It was.
But my point is, how is it that House 4 exists as a number 4?
Well, it's weird because, I mean, we can touch on that more when we talk about House 4, but like House 4 didn't actually have a proper release in the United States.
Okay.
And even locally, but
All right,
let's
we'll get to
address
that.
that when we
Yeah.
get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So-
no, it's weird though because that's the thing. It was made to be a house film. They realized the tone and everything. It was very much its own beast. I think they should have thought of a better title than the horror show.
Yeah, it's a dumb
It's
title.
an awful title. With the
I
right
just-
title, this film could have been a massive cult movie.
It
Like,
could have. I
massive.
just wish they'd stuck with House 3 to begin with,
Yeah,
like, because
yeah.
with that story, I'm
Yeah,
saying, like,
totally,
just because
yeah.
who cares if it's darker than the first two? Like, it doesn't have to all be the same.
No, exactly. It's that's it. Because the first and the second film are so different that it doesn't matter if the third goes in a new direction. And I mean, look at that Australian artwork, the home end artwork for it. It's fantastic. It fits well with the first two.
reaching,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whereas like the US artwork for the horror show, it's so uninspired.
Is that
and
the black
boring.
cover where you sort of
with just
silhouetted?
with Brian
Contrasty.
James on it? So
Yeah.
like big deal. It tells us nothing
Yeah.
about what this film's about.
Mind you, the Aussie poster art has the Psycho fucking house on it, and it's
Yeah.
like, where's the
Yeah.
relevance there?
Yeah. But that
it's a
hand,
cool-
that hand though.
that hand, that is a cool hand, and probably this film has the most resemblance to that hand when he's frying on the electric chair.
True, because you see that hand,
he's
all
all-
scanners like it's
Yeah.
like pulsating and swollen.
I love
and-
that sequence.
Yeah, it's
When
so
he's
good.
Oh, when he's
so
getting
good.
off on it.
I will
Yeah.
say this though, because Danny and I revisited the first. Is the first Power the one with Lou Diamond Phillips?
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
that
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Revisited that recently. It's like another execution film. The guy's executed, and then he moves through people and moves through things
Yeah.
and whatnot. And during that execution sequence, Danny pointed out, because we're watching this on Blu-ray on a 65-inch 4K
Of course.
TV, and Danny points out, go back and pause it. And I go back and she goes, see, different actor, like stunt guy, looks nothing like the guy. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, you're totally right.
And you looked at her and you went, I love you.
And that's why she's my wife. We're watching House 3, and I do a bit of a callback to that. Remember that time we talked about the... Let's have a look at this again. And when you got Brian James, like, on fire on the ground just after he said, I'm going to tear your world apart. And it cuts the actor on the ground, sort of burning or whatnot. And then it cuts back to him after he's they put him out. It's like the actor that's on the ground, that's on fire, has got a full head of hair. And it cuts back to Brian James, and it's like, clearly he's very bald.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, that wasn't the best stunt work. Could they not find a balding stunt man in Hollywood?
Or put a bald
'Cause
cap.
there's less,
Put a bald cap.
Yeah, bald cap on him. There's less to burn.
Brian James, rest
yeah.
in peace.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Brian James. He actually said that this is his favourite character that he's ever played in any film.
Which is
Above Blade Runner.
Yeah, I was above,
Wow.
Yeah, well, but it's because he's got a lead role.
He
Practically
does.
got a
He
lead
does.
lead
Yeah.
antagonist, And
His delivery when he's doing all the stand-up comedy is actually pretty fucking
yes,
good.
he's so good.
So good.
That struck a chord with me too.
Yeah.
Totally, it's very Rodney Dangerfield at times. So like the kind of humor about it, like
Yeah.
that self-depreciation. She called me after sex. Oh no, yeah, she said to me after sex. That's when she called me all the way from Las Vegas. So you're like, that's a Rodney Dangerfield style.
Totally,
joke.
then probably all the leftovers are scraps from Rodney
Yeah,
Dangerfield's
yeah.
cupboard. But he's appeared in, let's do the usual Fake Shemp podcast thing. He's appeared in 3 Albert Pune films.
Yeah, he has.
And I thought, well, this is a good opportunity to get a
What
little
were
bit
they?
of...
Hong Kong 97?
Yeah, A Love Story, Brain Smasher, I
Brain
should
Smasher.
say, and
Oh, yeah.
Nemesis.
Nemesis, of course. Oh, yeah, of course. He was one of the. He's one of the agents.
Funnily enough, I've seen all 3 of those films.
Boom,
Isn't
there
that
you
weird?
go.
That's weird. I haven't seen that much Albert Pune stuff, but I've seen the 3 of those films.
Boom. And the thing is, I thought this is a good opportunity to get a little bit of information. So I hit up Albert and said, is there anything you can tell me about Brian
Did you
James?
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, he didn't give me a lot.
Yeah, of course.
At first, he thought I wanted to do a recorded interview, and I'm like, no, calm your horses. Like,
Yeah,
I
right.
just want to
Yeah.
know some stuff. But he said that he was obviously doing the usual. He's one of the most lovable guys you could ever work with, all that kind of
Right.
stuff. He's a big teddy bear, and
Yeah.
stuff that anyone could say. But apparently, one thing he loved to talk about a lot, which isn't even on his IMDb or Wikipedia, is he's really, really proud of his military service.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
okay.
And he talks about it a lot, and Albert said he's not the kind of guy to reflect on the past, but that's the one thing he likes to tell people about. So I think that was interesting.
Yeah.
And Albert said he'd love working with Brian because he was one of the more adventurous and willing to take risks of all the actors he's ever worked with. So if there was a stupid, ludicrous idea, he'd be like, let's just try it.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Makes a lot of sense when you think in the context of House 3. Hey, we want to put your face on a turkey. Hey, we want to put your face on...
The turkey.
Yeah.
Oh my
Everything.
God.
I just love. But House 3, even regardless of the branding issues and all that kind of stuff, which are still relatively inexplicable for the most part.
It's so weird.
The director Jim Isaac, who we'll get to, but he actually stepped in because the original director was fired. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
No, that is
I heard
exactly
that, yeah.
right. The original director was David Blythe.
Yeah.
What did
And he
David
g-
Blythe do?
I
prior
don't
to
know.
this?
He hasn't
Yeah.
done much at all.
No,
Right.
but he got halfway through production and he got fired, and Jim Isaac came in and
Was Jim Isaac
It was
doing...
1 week into production.
Was he
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
some of the effects work on this
Yeah,
film? Because this would have been
Jim
his
Isaacs had
first film
worked
he
on the
directed,
first
yeah?
film, I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
okay.
behind the scenes doing
Yep.
special effects and all that
Yep.
kind of stuff.
I love Jim Isaac's films. Like
Yeah,
the
Jason
Yeah.
X rules.
Jason X was
X is great. He
unreal.
did
Yeah.
Skinwalkers.
Skinwalkers is
I've
one of my
never
guilty.
seen Skinwalkers.
Oh,
And did he-
yeah.
did he
Skinwalker's my
do-
guilty pleasure. I reckon I've seen that film a dozen times.
Did he do
I gotta
Peak
watch
Hunt?
it.
Did he do what?
Yeah, he did.
He
yeah,
did.
that was his last
Yeah,
film.
that
was
Yeah.
his-
It was like 2008. It's
That
like
was
the
a
Boar
m-
precursor.
That was a mental film.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it. I
It's,
can't get my
it's
hands on it.
strange. It's very strange.
I gotta see both of those. Mainly Skinwalkers.
Yeah.
Peak Hunt I'm a little
Skinwalkers
worried
is
about.
so much fun.
Yeah.
It's real. Like,
Because
really,
that had
it's
money
really-
behind it. It went theatrical. Like, it was a theatrical release here in
Here?
Australia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
That's
it?
the weird thing.
That was on that
yeah.
cusp of that time before everything
It was like
went DVD.
I wish I'd
Screen
seen
Gems
that
when
at
they were
cinema.
getting
Yeah.
stuff into cinemas. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen
Weird
that in
thing.
cinema.
It's before Marvel came along.
Yeah, before you.
Yeah. No room on this screen for any of that.
But yeah, he died about 10 years ago.
2012.
Yeah.
And he had blood cancer.
Wow, okay.
I remember
Shame.
reading it at the time. And
Yeah, I was
'cause
gutted.
at that point in time, I only knew him from Jason X.
Yeah.
And he'd worked, I think, with Cronenberg a lot.
He must have worked a lot with Cronenberg because he worked on the
Cronenberg was
original
his
Fly,
mentor.
worked on the Fly too, and then he got Cronenberg into Jason X.
which was
Yeah.
amazing
absurd.
cameo. It was
Watching
awesome.
that, it's like, I can't believe what I'm seeing.
Cronenberg does so few films, like
Yeah.
obviously Nightbreed, but that's because he's had a great relationship with Clive Barker. But then to turn up in this, you're
But
like,
not only turn up in
wow.
this, in a futuristic setting. Like,
Yeah.
I want him crispy. Was that,
Yeah.
was that so good?
I would love to get Cronenberg's take on Jason X.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's one of
apparently-
the great sequels, to be honest.
Yeah,
with you.
I love it. I saw that at the cinema as well.
I saw that at the movies in the US at the I think I saw it at the Aero,
That's awesome.
which is I'll talk about later when we do another podcast about another film. Plug for Sleepwalkers podcast on Rewind and Digress. But getting back to House 3.
I thought this was the best. I thought there was one that was the most. I feel like it didn't suffer from that mash of genres that I was talking about.
Yeah.
It was just a straight down the line.
Totally.
And pretty gnarly, even by today's standards. It's
The
a
first 5
pretty
minutes,
violent,
he chops off a little girl's head.
That's great.
It's
It's
a
awesome.
Pretty,
So good.
Pretty violent film. Even
Yeah.
25, 30 years down the line, it's still like pretty grotesque.
It just sets the scene so well. The opening of the film, you feel like you're kind of you honestly feel like this must be a dream sequence.
Yeah,
Like
this is
immediately, it's like obvious to you. I don't know
only that,
why.
This is a nightmare. Yeah.
Usually,
Yeah.
when you've got a scene where the crux of the story is based on this scene where
Mm.
the cop's daughter is killed, right? This is Death Wish kind of shit, right?
Yeah. Mm.
And it's like they usually imply it, and the emotional charge comes from the reaction of the father.
Yep.
And this one, it's like, nah, we're just gonna lop her head off, fucking
Yeah.
stab him in the chest,
and then throw it to the cop.
And then
right.
the head
Like,
screams
yeah.
in her
Doesn't he-
hands.
he
in tourist
catches-
trap
catches
style.
the catches
Girl's
her
head.
head.
Catches her head, and then it screams in his
It's
hand.
so brutal.
But then when he wakes up, and it's his wife.
Yeah.
But then it's Brian James.
Yeah.
And then he strangles. Then it is his wife. Oh my God. It's
Yeah.
like, oh.
It's a Christopher Nolan sequel.
It's total Inception, but it's like brilliant because it's so few films can actually pull off those sort of things and do them well. I mean, early in the piece, you do have the cat jumping out of the cupboard, and you're like, oh, that's so lame.
Yeah.
But because
I
it just
thought
sets
that.
you up because you know the bigger game's coming.
Yeah.
So obviously a House fan.
Yeah.
Where do you think it lies in the canon?
My second favorite.
It is your second
franchise.
favorite?
Yeah, because it's
Fucking
it is
air high
it is-
five.
Hey! It is definitely
second
more
favorite
straight
too.
ahead.
Is it really?
horror
Air
film.
high five.
Yeah, straight after House 2.
Yeah.
So that means that House sits at number 3.
Oh, does it?
Oh, possibly. God,
Oh, imagine if that was the case.
Ooh.
What about you? Where do you think it's a worthy sequel?
It's just so strange because it doesn't feel like a House film whatsoever. So it's hard to sort of put them in an order that's respectable. But
Yeah.
I think as far as the film itself, just pretending it's a sequel, it's number 2 off the rank for me. Like number 2, number 3, number 1, number 4.
Right.
Yeah,
and I
right.
just want to mention that this film was banned in Queensland. So growing up as a kid,
Oh, here we go.
it came
Every
out, and it
podcast.
took about 6-7 months, and then I found a video store that rented it, and we joined that video store so I could get it, and it became one of my favorite video stores. It was in fact called J&G Video, which is weird, almost my initials with the and in the middle.
You must have had like a really deprived upbringing or something. Like
It was very hard to
In
find the
fact,
films you wanted when
this
you had
is-
to join every video store in Brisbane
now-
to see them, just to rent one movie
all-
and go,
all three of them.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll return it in a day, and I'll never see you again.
So, in the spirit of House 3
Yeah.
and all that it does, let's just sort of have a little reflection on the youth of Jarrett living in
Yeah.
Queensland.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Roger Cobb has returned to his father's house.
You're making a big mistake.
He promised he would live here.
There are many memories of the past still sleeping in this house. I'm tired of that house.
He never knew he would die here. His wife has come home to an empty house.
Do you think there are ghosts here?
Or has she?
Who are you? The plumber.
If you love being scared, welcome home. House 4. Open the door if you dare.
So, Jarrett, tell us how you really feel about House 4.
Okay, so House 4, I'll give you this, that I said to the wife, I said, you don't have to watch number 4. We've revisited the first 3. I've seen House 4.
And P.S. God bless Danny for sitting down and watching all
saint,
Like she is the best.
And she watches them undistracted. Like if I go, we've got to watch this one without phones, and then she doesn't use her phone. I'm like, that's cool. And with House 4, I'm like, you can use any piece of technology.
Excuse me.
You can vacuum.
Excuse me for a second. Melissa, are you listening?
Danny, do you need a vacuum? Because I'm pretty sure I can put the
remember
subtitles on this one.
Remember I used to have that hashtag on Facebook? Hashtag be like Danny?
Okay, so let's talk about House 4.
House 4.
It's released direct-to-video, directed by a guy called Lewis Abernethy, who was the writer of Deep Star 6.
Cool name,
Which was
though.
produced by Sean S. Cunningham,
Yep.
so probably the only reason he got the gig.
Exactly
doing
right.
this.
Now, don't get me wrong, fellas, because it's a bad movie, right?
It's a bad movie.
I recognise it, but you know what? Watching it again
Yeah.
last night, nowhere near as bad as I remember it being.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen it twice and thought it was awful both times. And
It's
this
much
third
more
time round,
atmospheric
it's
than I
actually
remember.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm actually glad
it's not
you
good.
said this.
It's not good, but it's okay.
Because obviously this is my first
Yeah.
run around. I was watching it, perfectly aware of how you guys felt about part 4. And by the time I got to the end of it, when the credits started rolling, I'm like, it's no better or worse than the worst house film. Like, I don't know. There is that one sequence with the midget in the middle that, like
when it
that,
turns
like,
into a trauma film,
Yeah.
it kind
crime
of
boss.
loses its
It's a
way.
crime
I'm
boss.
like,
Yeah.
what? Like, remove that little sequence.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's really no
Yeah.
better or worse than anything else the house series has
So,
done.
if you're playing along at home, the quick synopsis for that is Roger Cobb from the first movie is now married. He has a daughter. He lives in his old family house, which is
With a different wife. A different wife.
and a different house, and
no little kid that he saved from the first film.
a different
Yeah.
backstory apparently. Because
Does it remember that he had a magic house? Like,
anyway, whatever. It's his old father's house, and it's not his auntie's house, which is
No.
the first one. So
No.
that's weird. So he spent a lot of time traveling when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Roger ends up dying at the beginning of the film. His spirit then becomes trapped in the house, which was built over the ancient Indian burial site. Enter a crooked stepbrother hell-bent on buying the house, and then some mobster dwarfs, and of course Roger keeps coming back again and again and again. And what I want to know is why the hell did William Catt just not agree to a lead role in this film?
They didn't, obviously. Danny said the same thing to me. She goes, how much better would this film be if William Catt was in the whole entire film?
Yeah.
I said, look, it'd still be a bad movie, but it'd be a marginally better movie.
An
But I
interesting
said,
movie, yeah.
they paid to get William Catt for 3 days. They shot his scenes in 3 days, and that's why.
Hang on, back it up, because he was making movies like Cyborg 3, Problem Child 3, and the Piranha remake at the time. He wasn't a hot commodity.
I know, but I don't think they were paying too much, because look at the rest of the cast. I mean, it's got Didi. Oh no, Didi Pfeiffer was in 3. It's got no one in this movie. It's got the little girl in the wheelchair.
well, because
It's got nobody.
He gets pushed down the stairs.
Yeah, it's so good.
P.S. How the fuck she
She
got
was
up the stairs
asking
in the
for
first
it.
place? That
I
was-
know, yeah, exactly, yeah.
They're moving a mansion with 2-3 stories with a girl with a
No.
fucking whewheelchair.
that's the thing, yeah, it's
like,
Hang on. It's a
Why
wicker,
did they
it's a
even-
wicker wheelchair.
Yeah,
It's not even a real
Why
wheelchair.
did they even move there? It's because he had such an attachment to this.
He didn't
his
seem that
father's
attached to
house.
me.
So we're all
It
going to move
seems-
to this house. Like
yeah.
clearly,
It's a
the brother
tenuous-
wants to buy it. Get rid of the house. Stay in the family house where you've all been. Hold those memories dear.
Here's how I understood it, and I could be wrong, is that the production happened and it was retrofitted into a house film. And
No,
when
I
it
feel
get-
like it was
when
made
get-
as a
when
direct
No, it
gets
had to
sequel.
have been. because
retrofitted, and then
They got William Catt in
then
to
they
do those bits.
crowbarred William Catt in to try and tie it to the series somehow.
I mean, I can buy that because his scenes are kind of like...
That's how I
It's
understand
just
it.
so weird because going back to how Glenn mentioned with House 3, how does House 4 fit in this? And it's odd because like he mentioned, House 3 was released as the horror show in the US. And when you make a film, and particularly in this era, your main market is the US, and obviously it's made for home. And really, there was no theatrical potential with this film.
Why
Then
is that?
Why?
Anybody know?
Why it was made for home, man? Or
Yeah, why was there no theatrical potential?
why was it made at all?
Yeah, right.
This is the real question.
Good answer.
But I don't know. It's an odd duck because here's the kicker. It was never released on home end in Australia until it came out on DVD through Force in, when they released the box set and released them all individually.
Really?
Yeah, which was like in the early 2000s. This film was made like 1994 94, 93, 92,
Somewhere
somewhere
like that.
around there. I can't remember. I've never looked into this film that much.
92.
92, there you go. So it never had existed in Australia until it ended up in that DVD box set. It's only prior to Arrow. Actually, no, Arrow didn't even release this on Blu-ray in the States because they've only released the first two because they're not licensed for those two. So this doesn't even exist on Blu-ray in the US. Never exists on DVD. It's only existed on video. And on video, there it exists as House 4, which confused the Americans because like, where's House 3?
Yeah.
And Europe are probably the only people that got all House 1, 2, and 3, and 4 and probably went, why the fuck do you keep... burdening us with this shit. In the instance of 4, at least.
It's
just
an oddity, man. It's an
complex. Like,
oddity.
I have no idea why or how it exists. When it turned up in that Force box set, my mind was blown because I was like in my early 20s back when I was like, what? They made a House 4? How have I never known about this film? And I had to buy that fucking box set just to see the 4th film because it wasn't available individually initially. And I went, well, that was a waste of money.
But in some regards, like, it's the first attempt to bring things back to the original.
Yeah.
It
Tied in
obviously
with the first.
doesn't succeed
Needlessly,
in doing that.
yeah.
And the fact that they'd already established, well, now it is an anthology series, why would you do that?
Totally.
You know,
and like you said, William Catt was in a point of his career where he was not a hot commodity, so he wasn't really selling potential. It's not like you would House 4 William Catt and people are like, oh yeah, got to see that. William Catt's in it. It's the last American hero. What's he been doing for a decade?
Mind you got the House fans probably would have gone, well, he's back. Like,
True,
this is,
yeah. And particularly the Americans, they're like, God, he's back. It's great. They skipped one. But that's all right. He's back. Makes sense.
But yeah, like I was saying, like, it wasn't as bad as I recall. I've probably seen it 3 times now.
This is my 3rd time I've watched it.
Yeah.
First
And
time on Blu-ray.
I enjoyed watching it. I can't lie. I did enjoy it. And I felt like this one, even probably more so than number 3, was more tuned into the Nightmare on Elm Street aesthetic.
Yeah.
It felt really Nightmare on Elm Street-y. Once again, getting sucked through the bed in this one. And just the pizza face and all that kind of stuff.
I'm your pizza man. I'm your pizza man. What's
So
that
weird.
song? And then she's singing the song, and I'm like, oh my God, when's it going to end? And then the pizza face pizza, and I'm like, oh my God, it's never going to end.
I just fucking love that you remember the tune.
I know.
I'm your pizza man. I'm your pizza man.
That was the one bit when she goes bananas on the pizza and tries to
stabbing it down the like.
And then the daughter comes in and says, "What are you doing, Mom?" And she goes there, pepperoni. Like, what did she say? No more pepperoni. And
no anchovies.
No more anchovies. Yeah, and it cut just beat perfect.
Yeah.
And that tickled me. That was my favorite part.
Then the poor crippled daughter's forced to eat like out of date mac and cheese.
Yeah, I hate mac and cheese, especially when it's older than me.
Yeah, that's weird. It's weird rewatching it. I was like, it was easily watchable. There's that 3/4 in when it turns into a bit of a trauma film briefly when they go off to the power, like
A little bit, yeah.
And it gets a bit
It's like,
weird.
all these
and
dudes-
it's suddenly lit weird and Dutch.
But it kind of has a really cool turnaround, like the end. Do you like the
It
finale?
kind of comes back again, and it's fine. It's just that.
But do you
middle,
like the revelation,
that,
the reveal, that that how he died and all that kind of stuff?
That bit was cool.
Yeah.
Because she
was a bit-
immediately thinks that they're coming into the house, and you're like, "Oh shit,
Yeah.
threat!" And then you're like, oh, "No, she's gonna find out how Roger died," and you're like,
It's
"Kill
a-
her."
But not only that,
bit's much
she's
better.
kind of caught in a vortex as well.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they're invisible to her. Like, they walk through
Yeah.
the trees, and so
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
stuck as well.
Yeah.
It's a little bit
That was-
Brian De Palma blowout kind of scenario, isn't it?
But
Like
you
trying
know,
to-
yeah, it is.
With
Yeah.
none of the artistry or intelligence.
Well,
Yeah.
there's
Or
artistry. I would
actors.
argue there is. Do you know who this reminded me of? Anthony Hickox. There's a like if
Hang
you
on, but did you say artistry or?
Yeah,
No, I'm
because
kidding.
Anthony. Yeah, come on.
Waxworks too,
if you
and-
watch Warlock 2,
Warlock 2, yeah.
there's a
It's
lot
that
of
kinda
similarities.
Dusty town.
The
and
way
like, yeah.
the way the car drives around the bend, it's all shot very similar. The fucking fluoro lights and stuff, like when
Yeah.
there's like fog machines and shit going nuts and reds and greens and stuff. That's really Anthony Hickox.
I will give the.
And there's a midget, and he loves midgets.
Oh, the midget,
He
true.
does like midgets.
And the house, that this actually does have a house, and it's a
That's
pretty
just
iconic looking
fucking
house.
plonked in the middle of nowhere.
It's
Like,
in the middle
it's-
of nowhere. There's no point
a-
in me trying to find that one.
It's a no,
that doesn't
yeah.
exist.
No, it's a backlot somewhere,
Yeah.
and it's
It
really
looked cool, that house, though.
It
It
did
was a
look
nice
cool.
house.
The
Real cool.
design of it was cool,
Yeah.
but just the way it was plonked, it's like
Yeah.
it just got dropped off that afternoon.
It was like nothing remotely near it. Like, I understand, yes, the brother, the corrupt brother wants to buy it because of the power plant, whatever. It was like, it's not really valuable real estate, is it? There's like a couple vultures maybe around it, but that's about it. And the brother being a vulture himself.
What I like too, like there's a big finale where no one's gonna fucking watch the movie, so we'll just reveal shit. There's a big finale where the seal for that Indian burial thing is unearthed and fucking fluid of some kind spews out. Like
That's how they're able to get out.
Yeah, right. But the thing is, right, the house is burning down, right,
Yeah.
and this water starts spewing, and the entire room is drenched. So
Yeah.
rather than staying in that safe drenched room,
Right.
she goes into the fire to escape.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of stupid.
Yeah,
Totally.
I never thought about it, but you're right.
Out of the
Yeah.
sink and into the oven.
into the fry pan.
Yeah.
So
ridiculous.
There we go, guys. We've done it. We've done House 1, 2, 3, 4. And
it's a good franchise. Like, it's weird. Because
I mean, like,
love the first film.
it's-
I love the first film, but now I realize that I actually like the franchise. Like, because the second one's weird, the third one's awesome, the fourth one I thought was a piece of shit, and now I'm like, it's not that bad. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's
you know
like,
what? I'm going to go again. I'm going to do it all again. Not in a hurry.
Oh,
but-
no. My wife will not allow for that. She will only allow for House twice a year, and we've hit our quota for 2018.
Have you really watched it twice this year?
Yeah, we've watched it twice this year.
So...
Well, do you know, I watched
We really have.
Yeah,
Isn't that
really-
weird and sad?
I watched
That's
House 2 and 3 twice in the lead up to this podcast.
2 and 3 twice.
Yeah, so I watched number 2 twice just because I finished it and I'm like, I really like this
So
movie.
you
I
watched 6 House films?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Mind you, the second viewing of number 3, I was like probably eating.
Yeah. Well, that's all right because you know what's going on.
Yeah, but I wanted to end this episode on a really weird note because in 2008 they made a horror film called House.
Yes, and it's
Whoa, you scared me.
Insomnia. Insomnia released it, didn't they? And it had Michael Madsen in it.
Correct.
Yeah, because I went to watch it yesterday and it wouldn't fucking load my DVD player.
Well, it's got no relation to the
Nah,
franchise.
nothing. Right.
But what
I've
it
never
does
heard of
have that's really weird, it was actually based on a novel by a guy called Ted Dekker.
Yeah.
Spelled
What?
D-E-K-K-E-R.
Yeah.
Weird.
Ted Dekker sounds a lot like Fred Dekker.
Totally.
But there's no relation to
No
those
connection.
two whatsoever. So
Weird.
there's just that. So let's just add that little trinket of
just a little
information to
morsel,
the
man.
House legacy.
I'll
I'll have
watch
to borrow
it. I'll let
Sean's
you- Yeah, I was
DVD.
gonna
Hopefully it'll
say-
work in my
And
player.
of course, that begs the question: why would you make a film called House in 2008 and you're not going to connect it in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form, whether it's a
Yeah.
remake or not? It's
Who
just a
cares? Michael
standalone.
Madsen's in it.
I care. I'm not. It's a
I
piece
love
of
Michael
shit.
Do you,
Madsen.
do
Is
you
it-
know they could make remake House, any one of the House films, to be honest. They could just
Well,
make
they
a
did,
new
but
House
what-
film and use the title House, and I'll just consider it House 5.
Really?
Because the franchise has been that weird.
It's
that
been all over the place.
If they do
yeah.
another one, I'll just like, that's
Yeah.
House 5.
Here's
House
something,
5,
yes.
the Sandlot kids. Like, yeah, it's House 5.
This
yeah.
has disappeared from the internet, but there was a point in time
Yeah.
where I could have sworn there was an unofficial House 5 out there. You know,
Right,
like
right.
Cruel Jaws became Jaws 5
Yep,
in some
yep.
markets. I have a funny feeling there was a House 5.
Could have been the Italians. They love
Yeah.
to rip off and capitalize.
Yeah,
on such
Demoni.
things.
How many Demonis
Oh,
are there?
God,
Yeah.
Jesus.
But
Like
I remember a poster and everything, but
Really?
I went looking for it and it just doesn't
No.
exist. So maybe that was just
Weird.
inside.
So the 2008
Dream
House
world.
isn't very good.
No, it's terrible.
Oh, God, that's a bit disappointing.
Do you remember the remake of It's Alive and how bad that was?
Oh,
No,
yeah,
I've never seen
right.
It's Alive
I haven't
either.
seen the remake. I only
Yeah.
saw the trailer and
Yeah.
it looked balls.
Well,
but
that's
I-
the caliber of film I talk about.
Oh, really?
Ugh.
Anyway, guys, it's been a fun episode.
It has
Thank
been very
you.
fun.
And thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Looks like you got some kind of alternate universe in there or something.